In this story, our protagonist accidentally makes a contract with the Demon Queen, and because of that, several other demons from the underworld come to him to undo this contract. But something mysterious happens, and they can't undo it. Because of that, he won't be able to separate from the girl, and everything he commands, she will have to obey. The story already begins with him running through the forest. He was running away from the Demon Queen. But to get to that part, we need to go back to the morning, where he was there, drinking his juice on the school rooftop, with his friends who always like to play pranks on him. And when they show up, Fred already imagines they are going to mess with him. His friends were such pranksters that the protagonist called them Bad Friend 1 and Bad Friend 2. They kept teasing, saying there was a girl interested in him. Besides, Fred was already 18 years old and had never dated. That was true, but it shouldn't be said out loud. And to tease our protagonist even more, they kept saying this girl wanted to go out with him. The crazy guy here already gets in shock, and the meeting place would be an abandoned forest behind a building. Our hero knew it was a prank, but he wanted to go there out of curiosity. Actually, he was desperate to get a girlfriend. That's because he lived alone at home, and it would be perfect to have a girl there with him. In the middle of the forest, he started walking, looking for someone. It was already getting quite cold, and he even comments that if he didn't find anyone, he would beat up his friends tomorrow at school. The wind was blowing hard, and the birds were flying, and the big guy ends up getting scared. He thought it was a ghost, and we see some eyes watching the boy. Unfortunately, he ends up tripping and falling hard, and the noise draws even more attention in the forest. Trying to get up, he realizes there were some eyes watching him. It could very well be just some foxes or bats. Then he heard the sound of someone jumping into the river, and he decided to go closer to see. Little did he know he was getting into the biggest mess of his life. That's because who was bathing there was precisely the Demon Queen. He didn't know. He started looking at the water, and he realized there was a woman coming out from there, but it was already too late. A beautiful girl with horns emerged from the water, leaving our protagonist with his mouth wide open. She was very beautiful, and he did not expect such a scene. And even the girl ended up getting scared. And there was the dear waifu with the melons in his face. And of course he didn't look away. And because of that, he ended up taking a really strong punch to the face. No point judging this protagonist, because I know you wouldn't look away either. At that moment, the pact was sealed, and he didn't understand what was happening. She kept cursing the boy, asking if he wanted to die. Of course his answer was no, and he even said he hadn't seen anything special. And preparing an ice magic, she said she would erase his memory. An ice sword didn't seem like a very safe item, and he starts screaming, like a good old protagonist. He tries to talk his way out of it, and keeps saying that she is too beautiful and shouldn't act with violence. Unfortunately, the girl also ends up tripping, another plot convenience. And as always happens in manga stories, she falls on top of the big guy, and with the favorite part in his face. And so, they roll into the water, she gets all wet, trying to understand what had just happened. And the big guy with blushed cheeks said that today was one of the happiest days of his life. That's because the demon girl was on top of him. In an embarrassing scene, he tried to push her, intending not to seem like a pervert, but he touched a sensitive area. And with that she slapped his face. All embarrassed, she asked what the hell he was doing. What's a fart for someone who's already crapped themselves? So he went ahead and said she shouldn't take it the wrong way. And the girl already starts running after him, asking what he just said. And that's how we find out why he was running away from the Demon Queen. He was really fast, and she asked him to wait. Wait for what, girl? Do you think I'm an idiot? The guy already had his pants all dirty, and he just needed to go home and change his underwear. And she kept running after him, and we see that a mark appeared below his neck. This made her weaker and lose her breath really quickly. And she even started to stop running, completely losing energy. And the guy ran as if there was no tomorrow. At that moment, the girl heard someone calling her. It was a suspicious man in the middle of the square. Just by looking at this guy's face, we can already imagine what he wants. And he even comes with that speech, saying it was dangerous for a girl like her to be alone at night. And he pulls out a checkers game, asking if she would like to play with him. She could very well be from another world, but she wasn't going to fall for such a trap. The scene goes back to the city, and we see that she managed to get out of that forest. She had beaten up that shameless guy, and said that humans are very tricky. Now she would need to find that boy, and get revenge on him. The scene shows a kitten, and it runs away. And right after we see that the rascal really got beaten up. It was already late at night, and the big guy finally managed to get home. He slams the door in desperation. He had never seen a woman with horns, and with such strength as hers. He even leans against the door, catching his breath. And meanwhile, he was telling himself that monsters don't exist. It could very well be just exhaustion, so he would go to sleep. However, to his surprise, someone was knocking on the door. He already imagined it was that crazy girl, so he goes there sweating cold. He decides to take a peek through the crack in the door. It was a neighbor calling him to play checkers, the same game that shady guy was offering. However, he slams the door in her face, saying he's not in the mood. She stayed outside insisting for him to play, but he didn't pay much attention. Right after, he goes to the window complaining that it was cold, and when he prepares to close it, he sees something down there. The guy already starts trembling with fear, because it was that girl who had climbed up there. And now she was standing on the window. The girl says hello to the human, and our hero even falls to the floor in surprise. And tells himself that ghosts don't exist, and the girl says they need to resolve the accident that happened. She knew that it wasn't on purpose, but even so, she would need to eliminate him. Since a pact had been made between them, it was draining her energy. And the girl started to run out of energy. She knew it was because of that pact, so she needed to break it as soon as possible. Without much strength, she ends up falling. And falls right on top of our hero, who was standing down there. The boy doesn't understand anything that is happening, while staring at her appearance. On top of that, she had fallen asleep in his arms, and at that moment, he realized he had found a big problem in his life. And even starts screaming really loud. The next morning, the girl wakes up lying on Fred's bed. Don't ask me why, but there's a photo of the scene from the night before on the guy's wall. She was kind of drowsy, and when she realized it, she was in that boy's room from the previous night. She already starts cursing him, saying that he had tried to take advantage of her. However, the guy looked like a zombie. He couldn't sleep at night. She refuses breakfast, saying she doesn't eat human food. But her stomach was growling, and because of that, she ended up grabbing the glass of milk and the bread. She ate in desperation, and asked if he had taken advantage of her. The guy said no, and she threw a paper at him, telling the boy to read it. Looking at those writings, he imagined it was a fantasy story, and started laughing because it was talking about the goddess of demons, and about a pact. So he asks the demon if she was being serious. She grabs a doll of the boy and keeps threatening, and said that if he didn't read that paper, she would break the little doll. This makes him panic because it was a limited edition of that action figure. So he immediately kneels, and starts begging for forgiveness, saying he will read the entire paper. With that, he recites the poem contained in those writings, and swears by the name of Fred that he was voluntarily breaking the contract. With that, that mark on the girl's body starts to disappear, until it completely vanishes. She screams with joy, saying that the contract was finally broken. And the guy wasn't understanding anything anymore, thinking she was crazy. With that, she threw the action figure, saying she was giving it back to him. However, she threw it too weakly, and it started to fall to the floor. And when least expected, the little doll shattered into several pieces. Collectors know how painful that is. So he was mourning with his little doll in his hands. That grumpy girl kept saying that he was too dramatic, and that it was just a resin doll. However, this made him furious, and he started cursing, saying that lazy people like her don't care about others. And he even kept shaking her with his hands, saying that the doll was very important to him. He had hurt his hand squeezing the broken pieces, and ended up making a cut dirting the girl. Because of that, she threatens him with a blade of water. That barely missed him, hitting the wall with full force. It was unforgivable that a mere human raised his voice to the successor of the demon kingdom. Not even the elders of her clan dared to raise their voices to her, so this mere human deserved the final punishment. The guy immediately panics, thinking this would be his end, and then at the last moment, he starts shouting for her to stop that. To his surprise, nothing happened, and when he looked at her, he saw that something was strange. She had stopped in the same position, unable to move. That mark below her neck had reappeared, and she realized the pact was renewed. Now he was believing in this contract story, and besides that, he also realized that everything he said, she was forced to do. Since he asked her to stop, the girl was paralyzed like a statue. The smart guy asked her to imitate a cat, and without being able to resist, she started to imitate, making a meow just like a kitten. This was too humiliating for the descendant of the demon queen, and the guy kept laughing. Fred wasn't really believing it, and now comments that what he's going to do will be fun. She already imagines he's going to do something stupid, but he said he had the perfect uniform for her. The girl's dirty mind made her think of a perverse outfit. Minutes later, he was drinking Coca-Cola from a wine glass, and comments that this is much better than he imagined. The big guy was living his best days. That's because now he had a maid who did everything he wanted. Don't ask me why he had an outfit like that stored. She was calling him master, as the boy ordered. And he even mentioned that she looked really good wearing that outfit. Since he could order her to do anything, he asked her to massage his legs. And the queen started cursing, saying that he was overdoing it. Without many choices, she went there to give the massage. He stretched his legs, telling her to do it properly, and then asked for a massage on his shoulders. The girl's hands were very weak, and he asked her to use more strength. Then the queen started pressing really hard, making him scream in pain. In a provocative tone, she asked if it hurt and if he wanted her to stop. She started getting irritated because the guy was too lazy. In front of Fred's building were his friends. They decided to go there to apologize for the prank they played on him the night before. And they even start arguing, one blaming the other. At that moment, they heard Fred scream asking for help. So they decide to run over there to see what was happening. When they opened the door, they did not expect to find that. There was a girl dressed as a maid on top of Fred, hitting him. His friends imagined it was a romantic scene and apologized for interrupting. But Fred said it wasn't anything like they were thinking, and that he needed help. After a few hours, he managed to explain everything to them, and talked about the contract. Logically, his friends didn't believe it, and they even said he was lucky to find a girl who accepted those kinds of games. Fred mentioned that it wasn't a game, but he didn't care if they didn't believe him. The long-haired one apologized for playing that prank. Besides, there was something Fred had forgotten, and his friend was going to remind him. He goes to Fred's ear and says that his devilish friend would be arriving from her trip today. And speaking of the girl, she ends up calling him. Desperate, Fred answers. And the girl on the other end of the line already starts cursing, saying that he must be at the airport in 2 hours to pick her up. He was acting like a doormat, and kept agreeing, saying he would be there. His friend said he had a big problem, because that girl would have to stay with him. And to avoid getting involved in that bigger problem, they end up leaving. Fred realizes he is screwed, because this friend of his was very complicated. So he makes an excuse, saying he needs to go out and will be back later. But before he could leave, the queen said he should first break the contract. I think he liked this contract, and didn't want to break it, that's why he kept making excuses. With her arms crossed, she said that if he needed to go out, she would go along. However, the big guy said she couldn't, and made up a lame excuse. That's because his friend couldn't see him with another girl, or she would get jealous. The demon queen keeps saying that these humans are too fussy, and with a snap of her fingers, she starts to change her appearance. And in a matter of seconds, she had transformed into a man. The scene shifts to a pink-haired girl smelling something. We see that she was not human, and she was in the city looking for someone. When she took off her cape, she said she had finally found it, and could feel the presence of the demon goddess. As she walked through the streets, she started to attract a lot of attention. People commented that she was a cute little girl wearing cosplay, and this made her very angry, saying that these humans were annoying. They even commented about her pointed ears. A guy asks if he could take a picture, since she was cosplaying as a demon girl. Hearing the compliments, she starts to get all full of herself. And when she reaches an alley, she mentions that she was sensing an aura in that place. Something ends up catching her attention, so she decides to enter that alley, while people are left in shock. She walks through that dangerous place very calmly, whistling. And the thugs around there get scared because there was a girl there. A guy runs to his boss, warning that someone entered their territory. The villain gives an evil laugh, saying it was just a little kitten. They call the girl's attention, and she turns around. Before she even noticed, she was surrounded by thugs holding baseball bats. In her pure innocence, she asks them to step aside because they were blocking the way. But in fact, she had invaded their territory, and would need to be punished. Even if she was a little girl, they shouldn't allow something like that. When called a little girl, she got angry. And the guy kept offending her, saying she looked like a spoiled rich kid because of her clothes. We see that she doesn't like being called a little girl at all. And with that, she landed a blow that made the guy's head smash into the ground. His henchmen get mad, saying she hit their boss. Right after, she ends up making an omelet with another guy, and he even falls to the ground foaming at the mouth. And she still asks if they are sure they want to mess with a member of the demon kingdom, since these mere humans were just insects compared to her. Out on the street, people hear a noise coming from the corridor where the criminals were. She cleans her hand after beating them up. And the guys were all wrecked. It's true when they say size doesn't matter. The girl was saving her magic powers to be able to locate the queen. After she left, the leader was thankful he was still alive. And he even managed to pull his head out of the hole. He only survived because he was very strong. The scene shifts to our protagonist sneezing. It was as if he felt something bad approaching. And he even asks what the hell is going to happen. But anyway, he was with Erica, or rather, Eric, since she had transformed into a man. They go to the airport while she keeps commenting on how beautiful the human world is. His friend had just arrived from her trip and was waiting for him. So she ends up noting Fred's arrival. He was embarrassed, apologizing for being late. And the girl gets all angry, saying he shouldn't apologize. And she lands a powerful punch in his stomach. He said he was late because he wasn't alone, and brought his friend. The queen introduces herself, and says her name is Eric. So our hero's friend tries to play it cool since she was acting rudely. And she introduces herself as Sophia, saying she is Fred's girlfriend. He didn't even know he was dating this girl, and he keeps complaining to her. Sophia mentions that he is breaking the pact, and this catches the attention of the Demon Queen. Then she asks what pact is this that Sophia made with Fred, and if by any chance she is a celestial being. The girl points her finger at Erica and says that actually, she is a heroine of the human kingdom. This was all a joke, but the Demon Queen was taking it very seriously and starts asking a lot of questions. Fred gives an awkward laugh because he knew the reason for the confusion, while Sophia found it all very funny. At that moment, Eric goes there and grabs Fred's arm and asks what's this story about his friend being a heroine, and the guy keeps saying it was just a joke. Sophia deep down finds this interaction between the two boys very strange. She even thinks there might be some romance going on, but she knows her friend and says he wouldn't do something like that. Anyway, Fred says he would quickly take her home. But Sophia gets mad, saying they need to enjoy the city a little. With that, they go to a cafe. It had been a long time since she had eaten cakes from that place. Poor Fred just wanted to go home and rest, because the day had been crazy. He thought he could be killed by the Demon Queen, so he was acting cautiously. At that moment, Erica, or rather, Eric, ends up kicking our hero's foot. So he keeps repeating out loud that they will only eat dessert and leave. In trying to play it off, he asks his friend if he's not going to eat too. The guy says human food is very bad, and Sophia keeps wondering why they are still in this joke. Fred even asks if he hadn't eaten the bread yesterday evening, and that was because the girl was very hungry, so she started to make a threatening face. She even explains herself, saying she only ate because, according to the pact, that made her weak. To stop the Demon Queen from saying anything else, Fred stuffed a donut into her mouth, and the queen kept stepping on the boy's foot. The scene was total chaos, with him shoving the donut into her mouth while she stepped on his foot. Sophia, a bit embarrassed, asks what is wrong with these two, and upon tasting that sweet, the queen realized it was very tasty. And she was even impressed by the softness of the sweet. Fred asked if she hadn't said human food was bad, and again the queen stepped on his foot. The poor guy even comments that it doesn't hurt anymore, since he's already used to the pain. And since he only got into trouble, even Sophia ended up kicking him. The poor guy said that now that kick really hurt. So Sophia stands up and grabs his shirt. In a very angry way, she asks what's this story about making a pact with Eric. And she steps on his foot again, refusing to tell. He is further threatened. So he makes a lame excuse, saying it's about a game. She wasn't really believing it, so he keeps insisting that it was just a game bet. Raising her hands, the queen asks for another serving of donuts. And Fred already gets mad, asking what's with all this eating. With a pitiful look, like Puss in Boots' kitten, she asks if there's any problem with that. He agrees to pay for the sweets, and says he's going to the bathroom. Meanwhile, Sophia keeps wondering why her friend was acting this way. Besides, this Eric guy was very suspicious. And she even imagined that the two of them actually had a romance. So she got mad at Eric, saying her friend can only date girls. Meanwhile, the poor guy was in the bathroom. His foot was hurt due to all the stomps he had suffered. A kind of magical portal starts to open in that bathroom, and the person who appears in the portal wonders what place this is. Someone knocks on the door, startling the protagonist, who says it's occupied. But this person didn't care at all, and ended up punching the door, breaking everything. The kid had no peace, not even to go to the bathroom. And the one who was there was that pink-haired little girl. He asked if by chance she was lost, since that was the men's bathroom. And what made her thoughtful was the fact that he was emanating the energy of the Demon Queen. Since she didn't answer anything, he started sweating cold, and asked again if this little girl was lost. He even put his hand on her head, saying she couldn't enter there. We know she doesn't like to be called a little girl, so she immediately landed a martial arts blow on the poor boy, and threw him far away, as if he were a toy. I've never seen a protagonist have such bad luck as Fred. And she gets angry, saying she doesn't like being called a little girl. And she even asks why he was emanating the presence of the demon goddess. The guy refused to talk, and she immediately stepped on his stomach, and she asked for the third time where the demon highness was. He imagined it was someone wanting to capture Erica, so he didn't say anything. And right after, he decided to play dead, just like some animals do to escape predators. She knew he was just pretending. And so she started to stomp even harder, telling him to speak up. Begging her to stop, he asks if by any chance she is a demon. In a frightening way, she asks if he wasn't pretending to be dead. Using that old trick, he said the Demon Queen was behind her. However, the girl wasn't stupid, and wouldn't fall for that trap. But curiosity ended up winning, and she turned around. That was the perfect chance for him to run away. With that, he managed to escape, and the girl called him a rascal. Back in the cafe hall, Sophia was drinking her coffee, and the big guy passed by running, screaming for help. Right behind him was that demon girl. Telling him to stop right there, Erica realized that was her friend Lilith. Already out of energy, he stopped outside, and even thanked God for having managed to escape her. However, it wouldn't be as easy as he imagined, and the girl said she could keep chasing him all day. Cornered, he told the ghost to let him go. The girl replied that she wouldn't eliminate him, but would make sure he could never walk again. At that moment, the demon queen appeared and told Lilith to stop, and the girl celebrated. Then she asked why Erica was in that male appearance. Helping him up, Sophia wanted to know what was going on. Since she met our hero, a lot of strange things had started to happen. Lilith asked why Erica's energy was in that boy. Calling humans insects, she asked what happened. And that made Sophia angry. They exchanged glares while insulting each other. And the aura surrounding Fred was exactly the demon queen's aura. So she immediately asked Her Highness if she had made a pact with that boy. A bit embarrassed, she kept saying it wasn't appropriate to make a contract with a mere human. And already casting an attack spell, Lilith said she knew Her Highness very well, and knew when she was lying. And with a giant scythe she said she was going to eliminate that boy. The guy was already crapping himself in fear. And as she was a servant of the demon queen, she needed to protect her from these threats. Sophia stepped in front, saying she wouldn't let her hurt her friend. But of course a mere human couldn't stand up to a demon. And preparing for battle, Sophia said she would only get past her corpse. It would be very easy to defeat a human. So she cast a spell to finish off the poor girl. The magic arrow flew in Sophia's direction, and hit her directly, launching her far away. Right after, Lilith prepared to finish off the boy, saying she would break the contract. However, Erica returned to her original form, asking the girl to stop. That's because if he died, she would also be in danger. So she needed to keep Fred safe. Lilith asked why she was so worried about humans who are worth less than insects. She replied that another reason was because the contract was an accident, and the boy was willing to break the seal. That made the little girl angry, saying she was promised for the ascension of God, and grumbled that the elders would be upset. At that moment, Erica shouted, telling her to be quiet and obey. That made the girl embarrassed, and then Erica said she must obey her, not the elders. They were childhood friends, so she went back to calling Erica by her name instead of Highness. She was Erica's only friend, and couldn't trust any other demon. Hearing those words, the girl was shaken. And she ended up undoing her magic, saying she wouldn't attack humans anymore. The elders couldn't find out this happened, so the girl decided to stay in the human world. It wouldn't be possible to convince Erica, so she ended up deciding to help. Besides, if Fred did anything bad to Erica, she would take care of him herself. Instead, Fred wasn't even allowed to disrespect Her Highness. Since the seal hadn't been broken, she said she would return to the underworld and research in the library. And in this way, she disappeared through the portal, leaving our protagonist shocked. Besides that, he needed to check how Sophia was doing. And he went running over there, while the girl mentioned that her shoulder was hurting. He asked if she was okay, and said he would take her to the hospital immediately. But the girl said it was just minor injuries. What she really wanted to know was why Eric had transformed into a girl. Later they went to Fred's house, and he explained everything. He said that contract was an accident, and now they were studying a way to break it. That really seemed to have been an accident. But what Sophia wanted to know was if he hadn't skipped any important detail, hinting that our big guy might have taken advantage of the girl. However, that was very hard to believe, but she trusted the story because she had witnessed a lot of strange things today. Besides, there was a woman with horns in front of her, and the guy asked where she got those donuts. She had hidden them inside her magic portal to eat whenever she felt like it, and even said she wouldn't share them with him. At that moment, someone knocked on the door, and Fred said he would go check who it was. It was already late, and he wondered who it could be. When he was about to open the door, someone suddenly opened it with full force, smashing the poor guy against the wall. It was one of his friend's bodyguards, and the guy was desperately looking for her. Right away, Fred realized it was Sophia's bodyguard. And Sophia asked how he managed to find her, but the guy was so desperate, he didn't even answer. He even grabbed his lady's hand, and started dragging her outside, saying they needed to leave right away. A bit relieved, Fred told her to take care. Already outside, Sophia shouts for him not to do anything wrong with Erica. This makes the atmosphere there a bit awkward, and he tries to play it off. At that moment, the girl says they should hurry up and do what they need to do. And she starts cornering him against the wall. In a somewhat romantic way, she says they should take advantage since it was just the two of them, and that they should do it while there was still time. Outside, Sophia was feeling jealous. The girl knew her friend had gotten himself into a lot of trouble, but he couldn't be with that girl named Erica. And that was because he had made a promise to her. Back in the big guy's room, he was out of options. So he makes a joke, asking if she shouldn't buy him dinner first. But that wasn't what she meant. Actually, it was to break the pact. After taking a slap to the face, Erica says they must break the seal as soon as possible. However, she was curious to know about this promise the big guy had made with Sophia, but he didn't want to talk much about it. And we see a picture of the two when they were kids, which suggests they had been friends since they were very young. They met at a funeral. Sophia was very sad in front of a gravestone. The protagonist's mother knew Sophia's grandmother, who had passed away, and she ends up telling the boy that Sophia was very close to her grandmother. She quickly realized that Sophia must be feeling very sad and lonely. He even knew Sophia from school, and noticed she didn't have many friends, so probably this loss was very hard for her to deal with. Some relatives end up calling her mother, and they left the girl alone. The hero's mother also mentioned that she was about to leave. However, he didn't want to leave Sophia alone. So his mother gave a smile, and handed him the umbrella, saying that he should find a way to save Sophia. The poor girl was very sad, so he shows up saying a simple hello, sheltering her from the rain. He says he would like to be her friend. The girl mentions that her only friend was her grandmother, but now she wasn't there anymore. With that, Fred has an idea. He decides to make a promise to the girl. He had heard something similar from his mother. He said it was the power of a hero that could unite two people forever with a pact. And he promised that he would always be with her, and would never abandon her. With his face wet, he asked if she didn't think that was wonderful, and he ends up extending his hand to make the promise. Sophia gives a smile, and right after they do the pinky swear, sealing the agreement. He says his name, and says he will always be by her side, no matter what happens. Back to the present, we see he was reciting the words to break the agreement. The big guy was doing his best to finish this pact. However, it hadn't worked. The mark was still there. This makes Erica angry, asking what the hell was going on. The guy lies on the bed, and says he's tired of trying so many times. He had already spent more than 3 hours shouting those phrases, and still, the pact hadn't broken. She thinks that probably Lilith is trying to figure something out there in the library. Since he was going to rest, he should at least tell her where the other bed was to spend the night there. Hearing those words, the big guy immediately jumps off the bed. He said the house only had 2 bedrooms, and his parents' room was always locked. That meant there was only 1 bed in the entire house. And if she wanted, she would have to sleep with him. She gets angry, saying she would never sleep with an insect like him, and even asks if he was joking. Since she was the demon queen, she couldn't sleep on the couch, much less with him. However, they didn't even have a couch in that house, because he ended up destroying it. That destruction happened because of a test he did, spitting fire like a circus magician. This makes Erica furious, telling him to sleep on the floor. And since the big guy was refusing, she started to threaten him with magic. But what she had forgotten was that he could control her because of the pact. And if she kept playing around, he would order her to do embarrassing things. With no choice, the girl ends up without an answer, and even admits, saying she will accept sleeping with him in the same bed. However, they must each have a different blanket and sleep apart. Before lying down, Fred makes a joke, asking if she was afraid of the dark, and right after, he turns off the lights. Several minutes had passed, and the poor guy couldn't sleep. She snored a lot, and that was very disturbing. And the worst part is that there was only 1 blanket, so he had to be careful not to touch her. He even thinks about the idea of throwing the girl on the floor, but when he looked at her face, the girl was very beautiful, and he couldn't do that. He even thinks about what could happen if he threw her on the floor. If she didn't find out, everything would be fine. But if by chance she woke up, he would be dead. And thinking about that, he already gets desperate, deciding it's better to try to sleep quickly. He gets a big scare with her hand falling on his body. She was having a nightmare, and starts talking about her father, who wanted to get rid of her. Apparently, the girl didn't have a good relationship with her family, and even said while sleeping that she was not born to be the demon goddess. The protagonist kept listening to all of this, trying to figure out what she was saying, and knowing that she wasn't so evil, and that she had problems in her life. He felt guilty. But their lives were similar because his parents were archaeologists, and he lived alone. Both she and he lived in a lonely way. She hugged him even tighter, asking if her father would come back, and he said yes to calm her in the dream. But what the big guy didn't expect was that she didn't get along with her father, and ended up kicking him. It was all a misunderstanding, and he was just trying to do good. And Erica kept cursing her father, saying that because of him, she had to deal with everything alone. The girl was sleepwalking, and he ended up in trouble, so he decided to sleep on the floor. The next day, she wakes up and realizes there was no one lying next to her. When she opens her eyes, there was our dear Fred looking like a zombie. She gets scared and kicks him again. The guy asks why she had to do that. She had already kicked him twice and almost sent our hero to heaven. Minutes later, he changes clothes to go to school, but he gets scared by what he sees. Erica used a transformation spell to have a human appearance and asked if it looked good. The shameless guy liked it, but pretended to be mad and said he wouldn't like her company. But that's not what she wanted. Actually, she was forced to follow him. That's because the pact weakened the girl, and if she stayed far from him, she would faint. And she even told him to take those shameless eyes off her. The guy comments that he's like Wi-Fi, where she stays close to him to have energy. She doesn't really get the joke, but imagines it was a pickup line. Right after, she says they should hurry, or else they would be late. And there was Erica on her first day of school. And the boy tries to relax, saying he needs to have a normal day. To his surprise, a portal opens in front of him, and who comes out of it is exactly Lilith. Our protagonist didn't have good memories of this girl. Erica asks if she found out anything about how to break the seal. Meanwhile, Fred already knew the school day would be terrible. It seemed that Lilith hadn't noticed that her highness was right behind, so she gets happy and says she has something planned for today. But when she looks at Fred, she gets disappointed, and goes to him, calling him an insect. While the poor guy tells her to go easy, and he even runs away, saying he's just fleeing so he won't be late. That pact seal hadn't been broken, and the girl asks her highness if they had recited it correctly. Erica said yes, but even so, it didn't work, and asks if she knows what's going on. They said that after an ancient war, a pact happened once after thousands of years, and that she would go to the library to find more clues. This makes the queen desperate, thinking she would have to wait 1,000 years, but that wasn't really what she meant. Besides, now that Erica needed to follow the boy, she would have to find an excuse to go to school, so Lilith would handle that. Inside the classroom, Fred was looking out the window, thoughtful. He didn't expect that pink-haired demon girl to come to the place, and his biggest concern was that the two would take over the school. After a sigh, he said that was unlikely to happen. At that exact moment, the new student arrives in the room. The teacher clears his throat, saying he would introduce the new girl. The students already make that shameless face, wanting to know who the new member was. She introduces herself, saying her name is Erica, and that she is the next demon goddess. The teacher said young people these days are very strange, and the boys already start celebrating, imagining she's an otaku. Fred goes into despair, saying his life is starting to look like a manga story, and mentions that when he was transferred, people didn't act with so much hospitality. While he was hiding, the teacher tells Erica to sit next to Fred, and the boys are all excited, wanting to ask her out. The chubby boy even asks where she lives, because he would like to walk her home. In response, she said she lives at Fred's house. The chubby boy is already confused, and even asks who this Fred guy is, because he had never heard of him. That's because our protagonist was a nobody, and people didn't even know he existed. So he goes there and asks Erica what was going on. She explains that demons and humans have always had secret dealings. And Lilith managed to help her by getting the girl into this school. Our protagonist already freaks out, thinking that demons are very dangerous. Besides, now she would be able to keep monitoring him. The teacher slaps the table, asking everyone to be quiet, and even says the class will start soon. During the lesson, our protagonist stays thoughtful, while Erica was sitting right next to him. He thought it was actually better for her to be by his side than wandering around the school with the risk of destroying everything. At that moment, a paper ball is thrown at the girl's desk. And in pure curiosity style, she picks up the paper to read the little letter. It was one of the boys asking if she was free this afternoon, and if she would like to meet him behind the bathrooms. The one who had thrown that little note was a playboy known for dating several girls. With pencil in hand, she starts writing her response, and we see that she had agreed to meet the guy. A little later, our protagonist was worried about this. On the running track, we see the bathroom where the boy had arranged to meet her. Fred, with the most shameless face, decides he's going to stay hidden to check what was going to happen. And there was the ladies' man, all full of himself. Fred imagined that if by chance he said something wrong to Erica, he could lose his life. So he decides he's going to try to save this guy. Of course, it wasn't because he was jealous. No, guys, it was because he wanted to bring world peace. The ladies' man ends up getting scared by our protagonist. And Fred introduces himself, saying his name, and the guy, even though he was his classmate, didn't even know him. It didn't even matter who he was, but there was big news. It was for the boy to stay away from Erica. However, the ladies' man thinks this boy is in love with the new student, and keeps saying that no one will ever be able to stop his love, because he was madly in love with the new girl. Our protagonist keeps saying he was an idiot, and besides, that girl was the goddess of demons. The overconfident guy doesn't believe it, and keeps saying this kid was nervous for nothing. Besides, if the boy didn't have the courage to approach the girl he liked, he should simply stop getting in others' way. At that moment, he hears Erica's voice asking what that ladies' man was doing there with our protagonist. and even asks why he was there, since in the little note it said it was a fight between her and the overconfident guy. The guy says it was him who wrote the note, and that it wasn't a fight at all, but a date. And keeps throwing his pickup lines, holding a rose in his mouth. Out of nowhere, the girl appears kicking the guy, and the hit lands square on his face, launching him far away. In response, she says that an opponent can never let their guard down during a duel. And even asks Fred what he was doing there, just watching. She had understood everything wrong, and the guy ended up with his face all smashed. She thought it was a duel, since there were 2 hearts pierced by an arrow, and in the demon world that meant a fight challenge. That was exactly why she had accepted it, since a respectable demon would never run away from a fight, and even asks him what else that drawing could mean. Fred realizes how different the culture is between the 2 worlds. After having defeated the blonde guy, she ends up saying goodbye, saying she won't eliminate him. The next class was PE, and our protagonist keeps asking who the teacher was going to be. That's because the teacher was sick, and Erica said Lilith will be the substitute. We see that she was really there teaching the class. The girl was wearing a teacher's uniform, and giving instructions to the students. But she was very short and looked like a child, and they start commenting on it. They even ask if, by any chance, she was a teacher's daughter. Erica mentions that in the demon world, she was a training instructor, and everyone respected her, because she was very powerful. But here in the human world, everyone was thinking she was cute, giving lots of compliments. As we know, she doesn't like that at all, and gets furious. Some of the guys even put their hand on her shoulder, calling her cute. And to make things worse, one of them pats her head, asking how old she was. That makes Lilith furious, and she ends up hitting the guy, launching him far away. Our hero knows very well that if these demon girls keep wandering around the school, they will destroy everything. Very angry, she repeats that her name is Lilith, and that she was the substitute PE teacher. The students start to believe her, as they saw that the girl was very powerful, and she even asks if anyone else had any doubts, and everyone answers no. Fred asks what exactly she taught there in the demon world. And Erica said she was responsible for training the most powerful demon warriors. She was so strong that she could even bring those big guys down. Her training was that strict. Hearing those words, Fred already starts trembling in fear. Lilith ends up blowing the whistle, and thus the training begins, which was 20 laps on the track. And meanwhile the girls could rest. If by chance any boy refused to run the 20 laps, she would launch them far away, just like she did with the chubby guy. The chubby guy complains, saying he won't be able to run 20 laps, and she asks if he wants to be thrown up again. But 20 laps was a lot, almost 8 kilometers. And our protagonist keeps complaining to her, saying it was impossible for high school students to do that. Besides, it was unfair for the girls to be resting while the boys were training, but the one who made the rules was the teacher, so they should obey. Some guys who were just fooling around ended up being caught by her. And trembling with fear, Fred hears her ask if he had something against her, and if by chance he thought the training she was giving wouldn't be useful. As she commanded respect with that evil aura, everyone ended up agreeing to run the 20 laps. And so they started running. These students here weren't used to this, and already on the 3rd lap, they were almost dying of exhaustion. Fred keeps telling himself that, since he was a man, he couldn't give up so easily, and after 5 laps, the sun was blazing. The students were dehydrated, looking like mummies. And Fred starts saying that he was almost dying. I wanted to see if he could run in the heat of my city. And Lilith from the back keeps saying they are a bunch of slackers and softies. And to motivate them to run, she starts preparing a spell, and makes a magic seal on the ground. Gradually they start to realize something strange is happening, and a very bright light starts to appear beneath them. The ground was cracking as if it were a volcanic eruption, and that was just an illusion from Lilith to scare the boys. That way they start running to escape Lilith alive. Our protagonist even knew it was a hallucination, but Lilith's genjutsu was very realistic. And everyone starts screaming in fear. It was as if a gigantic ball was rolling behind them. The girls watching that race mentioned that suddenly they gained speed, even though they weren't seeing anything. The only one who knew what was happening was Erica, and she even comments that Lilith was overdoing it in this training. And it seemed like she was having fun. Erica mentions that her friend hadn't changed at all. She was the same, since she was a child. The scene changes to a flashback in the Demon Kingdom, and we see that the place was quite strange. It seemed like the whole kingdom was empty, and the only one sitting there was our dear Erica. Lilith appears asking if she was the daughter of the demon gods, and quickly introduces herself, saying that from now on she would play with the girl. However, Erica kept saying that she was too dangerous, and couldn't have close friends. But Lilith tells Erica to stay calm, because she was very powerful, and wouldn't be in danger. The scene returns to the present, with our hero falling to the ground. He had finally finished the 20 laps, and was exhausted. Erica goes over worried and says she thought they were more powerful. She thought humans had more physical stamina than demons. And this makes Fred angry. He even tells Erica to keep her friend under control, otherwise she would end up wiping out all the students in the school. However, there was nothing Erica could do, since she was like that and wouldn't be able to change her. She was tough on demons and acted the same way with humans, even if they were weaker. As Erica was crouched, our hero was looking at the sensitive areas and asked if she thought it was appropriate to stay in that position. That's because she was wearing a skirt and you could see everything. Erica immediately realized where he was looking and ended up kicking him in the face. This guy was shameless. He even said he was just trying to be polite and reminded her of that. But this ended up making the heroine even angrier. The chubby guy was still running and keeps shouting that his pants were falling. Later, when going home, Fred keeps complaining that he was tired and promises that he will never participate in PE class again. Erica kept saying he was very weak for not being able to run 20 laps. And he gets mad, saying humans are weaker anyway. At that moment, a girl passes in front of him, catching Fred's attention. The guy gets hypnotized, saying the girl's scent was really good. The pretty girl glances at him, and right after she frowns, making a very unfriendly expression, and even walks away grumbling. Erica says that our protagonist is shameless for staring at girls. And he says he didn't do anything wrong. However, he felt a strange sensation. When he looked at that girl, it was as if they were connected or something like that. This makes Erica even more certain that he was shameless. At that same moment, someone ends up bumping into the girl while chasing that woman. Erica gets angry, asking the guy if he didn't watch where he was going. Apologizing, he says he was in a hurry because he was following that woman. The girl's name was Shaya, and he starts calling her. Fred ends up saying that a girl had just passed there, going down the stairs. And the guy keeps saying she was running away from him just because she was pretty, and thought she was too good. Realizing that he probably gave the location of a girl who was being chased, he already starts feeling regret. The guy even says no girl should reject him because he was rich and had everything he wanted. Erica keeps telling this guy to stop acting up and not to cause trouble with them. And the bully thinks he has the right to go around hitting others just because they answered him rudely. Fred steps in, saying it's a shame for a man to lay hands on a girl. And with that, he ends up taking a slap in the face. He even falls to the ground because of the impact, and keeps saying the next one to get slapped by him would be Erica. But once again, Fred steps in to protect her, and says that if he wanted to hit the girl, he would have to go over his dead body first. Erica logically is much more powerful but is touched to see that the boy was putting himself at risk just to protect her. The villain mentions that this little boy thinks he's a hero, and prepares to kick the poor guy. However, Erica appears and grabs his foot, emanating a powerful aura. She says he should stop with this. The guy was a rich brat, and keeps asking if she knew who she was messing with. And with a fierce look, she calls him trash, saying that all trash must be eliminated. With that, she sends the guy flying, throwing him hard to the ground. Fred even asks if the guy is okay and if she didn't kill him. Erica tells her friend to relax, that he's not dead, just hurt. The guy gets up asking if he really just got beaten up. Since he was rich, he thought people should never mess with him. At that moment, someone appears asking what was going on. It was the principal, and the rich guy immediately starts telling everything. Fred realizes they are screwed because the principal was very strict. But luckily for them, Erica mentions that the principal of this school had dealings with demons. The rich kid, of course, was telling the whole story wrong, trying to incriminate Fred and Erica. He keeps saying that he was just passing by the campus when he was attacked. The principal mentions that this student's father was very wealthy, so he needed to punish the students who had attacked him. The guy stands there all smug, saying that's right, and that if the principal punished the students, he would give him a good reward. Upon hearing that he would earn a lot of money, the principal goes over to punish the two, and says that since they attacked the student inside the school, both would be expelled. Erica thinks that to get rid of the punishment, it would be enough to defeat the principal. But Fred says that's not how things work. In the background, the principal gets embarrassed and gives an evil laugh. At that moment, Lilith appears and asks if the principal had forgotten what he was supposed to do. This principal had a contract with the demons, and part of the school's profits was thanks to the demon empire. Lilith tells the principal that the girl he was expelling was the queen of demons. He didn't know that and became regretful. He even started sweating cold. With that, he canceled the punishment and pretended that nothing had happened. And to avoid further problems, he said he had an important meeting and left, letting them handle things. The spoiled boy realized that Erica was much more powerful than him. Even though he was rich, the demons had more influence in the school, so he leaves saying it would be better for those students to take care and not mess with him again. Fred is left not understanding anything, not knowing why everyone ran away. With blushing cheeks, Erica asks if Fred was okay, and hands him a little tissue to clean himself up. A bit embarrassed, she says he didn't need to help her because she was strong and could take care of herself. It was very difficult for a demon queen to say that, but she was thanking him. The guy gets a bit awkward and says it was his role to protect a friend. But he understands that he wasn't that important in the world. Upon hearing this, she is a little shocked because she realizes that he didn't value himself. So he says he was joking and that he would go back to the classroom to get her backpack, and then they would leave together. Later they were heading back, and Erica keeps thinking about the words he had said. The guy really had low self-esteem, and he even said about himself that he had no value in this world. It was very similar to the way she also felt, and that's why she realized they had a lot in common. The demons of the underworld said that the daughter of demons seemed to be very weak, and they didn't trust her to be the future queen. At that moment, Fred ends up telling her to walk faster and not stay alone. This makes her embarrassed because he wanted to walk together with her. So she goes and punches him in the head, and even tells the big guy to stop trying to be nice. She says they should stop by a cafe to get donuts because she was hungry. We see that the girl who had passed by him was spying on the two, and it really seemed like Fred and she had some connection. Minutes later, they arrive at the cafe. Upon arriving there, they notice there was a promotion called Betadozi. Whoever participated in this promotion would win a month of free donuts. So Erica already starts pulling our protagonist inside, saying they needed to participate. The receptionist gives them a warm welcome, and Erica immediately asks how this free donuts promotion works. The employee says that a couple just needed to take a picture kissing, and thus they would win free donuts for a month. This makes her enchanted, and she starts looking at Fred, wanting to say with her eyes, "Let's take this picture right now." The little demon says all she had to do was kiss him, while the little angel inside her keeps saying that it wasn't wise to do that. She was a goddess of demons, so she couldn't have a relationship with humans. However, the desire to eat free sweets spoke louder, and she immediately points at Fred, telling him to kiss her right away. It would just be a kiss to get this promotion. And the guy doesn't answer anything because he was stunned. She says she was a goddess of demons, so this kiss wouldn't mean anything. It was just to get free donuts. She was very shy, and he keeps saying she looks really cute when she's like that. He ends up accepting, and the employee says they should go to another room in the store to take the photo. As soon as they were ready, she would capture that moment. He's all flustered, with blushing cheeks. She was angry because he looked like a fool. Without him expecting it, she ends up pulling him close. And so they kiss in a very romantic scene. The kiss lasts even longer than expected. When they finish, the employee says the combination of the two was perfect. She was dazed because that was her first kiss. Now all that was left was to put the photo on the mural to activate the promotion. Trying to sound confident, Fred asks if she was satisfied now. And the girl slaps him in the face, saying the boy had taken advantage of her. Now that the photos were ready, she could get her donuts. She still asks if they wanted a copy of the photo, and they said yes. With the photo in hand, she starts observing the scene. The two stay silent, full of embarrassment. The employee says they are a very cute couple and that now they could choose whatever donuts they wanted. She already gets excited, looking at all those options. A little embarrassed, Fred says he will wait outside. He also comments that she didn't pay attention to him and only thinks about sweets. The air outside was refreshing. At that moment, he hears a noise. It was precisely that girl from earlier. He kissed by an old man. The guy says she was very pretty and wanted to kiss her. However, the girl pushes the old man, who falls hard. He hits his head on the wall. She realizes that this bald man will cause more trouble with her because of this. As he gets up, he starts talking nonsense, saying she was provoking him. Fred needs to intervene to protect her, and the only weapon nearby was a loaf of bread. The chubby guy pulls out a knife and charges hard, trying to attack her. She realizes this could be her end, but a man wearing a mask appears to save her. He hits the attacker on the head with a baguette. The guy asks what the hell that was. With a bag of bread on his head, our protagonist grabs the girl's hand and starts running. They run very fast. Realizing he was hit by the baguette, he feels a little embarrassed. They run far away. After removing the bag from his head, he says they are safe now. The girl realizes he was the boy from school and starts getting angry. And even says she doesn't trust demons. Fred doesn't understand anything that is happening, since he just saved her. When he tries to chase her, he trips on a stone, and again we have those plot conveniences because he falls on top of the girl. To make things worse, they were on a cliff. And they fall rolling down to the bottom, hitting their heads on a tree. He had his eyes closed. Unintentionally, he touched a sensitive area. When he opens his eyes, he realizes where he had touched. Because of that, she gets ready to slap our hero. However, he puts his hand on her mouth, telling her to be quiet. That's because the bald man was nearby and could hear their noise. They were passing up there looking for the girl. Since they didn't find her, they say they are probably on the other side of the park. And they go there to look for them. Now finally, they were safe. The girl keeps saying he touched her. In his defense, our protagonist assures it was by accident. It was all a misunderstanding. When he grabs her arm, the girl throws him away, making him fall into a lake. We see she is very powerful to be able to do something like that. However, he didn't know anything and starts calling for help, while she says he deserved it. She still mentions that demons like him should have the worst possible fate. But when she looks at his hand, she notices something strange. Since he was injured, he left some red liquid on her hands. When smelling it, she realizes it wasn't the smell of a demon, that smell was human. But our protagonist was almost drowning in the water. She had thrown a human boy, not a demon, into that river. Gradually he sinks. Realizing what she did, she jumps into the water to rescue him. He was already quite deep, so she needed to swim there. With that, she manages to get close, grabbing his hand. Right after, she takes him back to the surface, and even sighs, relieved. The guy was unconscious, so she starts dragging him to the shore. Finally, she lays him down. Unfortunately, our protagonist had swallowed a lot of water. The boy tried to help her all the time, and she had done that to him. So logically, he was resentful. To save the son, the only option was mouth-to-mouth resuscitation. And that was exactly what she did. I don't know if this protagonist is lucky or unlucky. Comment below what you think. Meanwhile, Erika was there enjoying the donuts. She comments that those donuts are the best. And while she was having fun, our protagonist was almost dying. Because of that, she started having a horrible feeling. That's because if our protagonist died, she would also depart this life. She puts her hand on her chest, feeling a lot of pain. And she knew something was wrong with Fred. Meanwhile, that girl was doing mouth-to-mouth, trying to get water out of his lungs. Fortunately, she succeeded. He started spitting water everywhere. He had almost died, and already started complaining. The women of this world are really scary. She gets all embarrassed, with flushed cheeks, asking if he was okay. Yeah girl, you almost killed our protagonist. He doesn't answer because he was angry. But our protagonist ends up saying that if it wasn't for her, he would have died. So he ends up forgiving the girl. She approaches slowly, and starts smelling him to see if he had demon scent. The guy gets all scared, asking what she was doing. She felt a demonic presence. However, the red liquid on him didn't smell like a demon. That was very strange, but she lets it go. Now he needed to figure out a way to get out of there. It was getting late, so she needed to dry off to leave. She starts wringing out her dress to get the water out, and the boy keeps watching her. She still asks how long he's going to keep staring at the girl, and stares at him seriously. That makes the boy embarrassed and apologize. She continues trying to dry her clothes. He looks away to disguise it, but like a good old shameless guy, he tries to sneak peeks. Right after, she throws his bag and tells him to grab it quickly. He thanks her. Besides that, she had something to say to the boy. So she apologizes, saying it was all a misunderstanding. Besides, he was just trying to help her. Late at night, they end up face to face. The boy's cheeks are red with embarrassment. He says he didn't do anything wrong, he was just helping someone in need. He was opening a gate behind them. The girl hadn't noticed that, but who ended up arriving was Erika. She was worried and asks that girl what she had done to Fred. The two face each other, and now Erika was feeling a demonic presence coming from her. The girl asks if she was a demon. Our hero's friend asks why she cared about that, and immediately pulls Fred, saying they need to go home. She also tells him not to hang out with those strange people. At that moment, that girl loses patience with Erika. First, she needed to answer if she was a demon or not. Since Erika hadn't answered, the girl got irritated. She immediately prepared a spell with her hands, and said she didn't like demons like her, because they always cause problems. We see a flashback of two injured adults. That makes us understand she probably lost her parents to a demon. With that, she casts a water spell. The power rushes toward Erika. Our protagonist tries to warn of the danger. She immediately throws the protagonist back, telling him to stay safe. She prepares to defend the attack. The blow comes hard toward her, so she uses energy to stop the water attack. She does this with a reflective ice shield. The attack explodes, scattering debris everywhere. In the middle of that smoke, the protagonist asks if they are okay. Erika tells him not to worry, that she was fine, and he should stay hidden. At that moment, the girl starts casting even more spells. She seemed very powerful, with an absurd attack. Even Erika got scared by that power. She turns around, telling Fred to stay hidden, because the explosion would be big. However, he couldn't just abandon Erika. He ends up pushing the girl and dodging the attack at the last moment. But a bit of energy passed near his back. Hitting the trees in the background, it caused a huge explosion. The marks of that attack caused a huge scar in the earth. Fred was on top of Erika, worried about the girl. The other girl didn't understand why a human had saved a demon. Fred said he didn't really know what she had against that race, but he could guarantee Erika was a good person. It was better to solve things by talking than attacking others without knowing why. The girl replied that he knew nothing and shouldn't interfere in her business. But since he was determined to save Erika, the mysterious girl said she would check on him and would only let it go this time because he had saved her. When leaving, the girl said sooner or later, Fred would discover the true nature of demons. They were not trustworthy, and besides being evil, did disgusting things. The girl finally left. Our hero sighs, saying today was a very crazy day, and he almost died 3 times. By the way, he was on top of Erika. The girl with flushed cheeks asked why he was on top of her. Of course, our protagonist was teasing Erika, and she ended up kicking him in the stomach. She mentions that with her current powers, she could handle that girl easily, and wouldn't need our protagonist to save her. But remember that the pact absorbs spiritual energy. Because of that, she returned to her original form and started to faint. She was very weak, because she used a lot of energy. Back in the demon realm, Lilith continued her research. She was looking for a way to break that pact. She had read several books, and ended up finding very interesting information. There was a peculiar name written in the demon family tree. She realized that person was very important. The scene returns to Earth. Erika was unconscious on our protagonist's bed, in a very serious condition. He didn't know who to turn to, since demons don't have the same bodies as humans, so she couldn't take regular medicine. So he takes his phone to call Lilith and ask what to do. He starts calling Lilith. She answers the phone inside the library. He is desperate, saying Erika went through something terrible. Lilith starts scolding him, saying he was stupid for talking like that. Then he says she was very weak, probably used too much energy. It seems she had a high fever and a wet forehead. If her powers dropped to 0, she would lose her life. Because of that, Lilith gets desperate. This was clearly related to the pact between them. She says she will do everything to find a way out. But for now, a way to ease the symptoms was to make her drink a little of her red liquid. The guy goes into shock. Lilith also tells him to be careful. If she drinks too much of that red liquid, he himself could die. She hangs up, leaving the guy terrified. She had hung up on him, and that was very dangerous. If he didn't give the right amount, he could die. The guy panics, of course, and poor Erika was very weak, struggling to breathe, but there was no other way to help the friend. Making a shallow cut on his hand, he prepared a few drops to fall into her mouth. Soon that mark below her neck started turning black again. She began to regain energy. The pain went away, and the temperature returned to normal. Our protagonist kept watching to see if the girl was okay. It seemed now she was better. It was simpler than he thought. He even covered her with the blanket, telling her to get better and rest. However, he also started feeling dizzy. She had drained his energy after drinking her red liquid, and with that, he fell on top of her. Back in the demon world, Lilith continued researching. She felt someone watching her. She started searching the corridors. When she noticed someone approaching, the person quickly disappeared. She started running. She ended up running past, and in the back there was someone watching her. That person was quite mysterious. Next, he went to the table to read the book Lilith was reading. It was a book about pacts. The man smiled, finding it very interesting. Later, the scene returns to the human world. Erika had just woken up. She realized her powers had been restored. Fred was unconscious, lying at her feet. Very worried, she asked what he was doing and if he was okay. She noticed his hand had a bandage. She soon deduced that he had given some of his red liquid to restore her energy. At that moment, the girl realized he cared a lot about her. She even liked him a little more. There was our protagonist, sleeping. She called him silly, and he ended up waking up. Then he started looking around to see where he was. When he turned, she was calling him master. Dressed in a maid outfit, she told him to eat the breakfast she had prepared. It was any boy's dream. He thought he was dreaming. But no, Erika was really wearing the maid dress. He even pinched his own leg to see if it wasn't a dream. With flushed cheeks, she told him to hurry because the food would get cold. So he went to have breakfast. His legs were weak, and he tripped, falling on top of her. But the girl was alert and managed to hold him up in the air. She asked if he was okay. Very embarrassed, he said yes. Erika knew it would take a while for him to get back to normal. Taking her phone, she gave a notification. Meanwhile, the poor boy faced a completely burnt pancake. That didn't look appetizing, and he was afraid to tell the girl he wouldn't eat it, especially since she had prepared it with care. He started grumbling and went to poke the pancake with his fork. But a rubber appeared, and the pancake flew away. Right after, he said that was inedible. In a threatening tone, Erika asked if he was serious. And if he wasn't going to eat breakfast, he tried to bite it, but said it was harder than the plate. The pancake fell on the floor, making Erika furious, saying she spent a lot of time preparing it. He tried to explain, but she didn't want to hear anything and already hit him. Later, they were going to school. He couldn't believe the kind of life he was leading, and when he looked back, she pretended not to notice. She told him to wait a bit, because she would be back soon. She ran off, leaving our protagonist behind. He couldn't just keep monitoring all the time, so he told her to turn around. Shia appeared there, being teased by that bully. Okay, that girl is pretty, but not so much that everyone would go crazy over her. At that moment, she noticed Fred was there. He called for Shia, asking if she needed help. The girl slapped that bully's hand and told him to stay away from her. Then she headed toward Fred. She grabbed his arms and said the weekend meeting was on. That made the bully very jealous. He even recognized Fred, saying that scoundrel interferes with his plans. The guy left complaining, saying he would find a way to get revenge on our protagonist. Right after, she kept smelling the boy. He said it tickled and told her not to keep smelling him, because it was weird. That was because he was smelling a demon, even if he wasn't one. We know that is because of Erika, but of course he wouldn't say that. There was the big girl, seeing her beloved with Shia. She was very close to him. It even seemed they were very close. That made the demon queen furious, dying of jealousy. She went there wanting to confront, and said that girl shouldn't bother, getting all over her friend. Shia said she wouldn't let go of Fred, and asked if Erika had a problem with that. We see that the two were fighting over our hero. She also mentioned that demons keep killing innocent people, and it was very hypocritical to want to save that boy. Erika said she never killed anyone, and besides, Fred belonged to her. Shia asked if Erika had asked if he liked her. Erika said she didn't need to ask that. She immediately grabbed the boy's hand, started dragging him, telling him to follow her. But Shia also grabbed his hand. A tug of war began, both pulling him in every direction. The poor boy even started yelling, asking them to stop. Erika told Shia to let go. In response, the girl said if she left Fred with her, he would be killed sooner or later. From the start, that girl was attacking him, without any reason. Erika said Shia was actually the real demon. She got scared hearing those words, and started pulling even harder. Erika ended up winning the tug of war, bringing Fred to her side. Shia looked at them with a nasty expression, while our protagonist was more lost than a deer in headlights. Right after, the girl excused herself and left, leaving the two confused about why she was acting that way. Erika tried to understand what was happening, since it seemed very strange. The protagonist asks what story is that he belongs to her. Embarrassed, Erika goes to punch him on the head, and repeats, telling him to stay away from that girl, because she was not good company. The scene changes to a little later, and our hero was leaving the bathroom. He couldn't stop thinking about that girl who was chasing him, telling him to stay away, bad-mouthing demons, because she was dangerous. He also couldn't stop thinking about what Erika said, saying that Shia was the real demon. At that moment, he sees that the girl was there. She asks if he wasn't afraid to die. He didn't know why that girl was chasing him, but she said she was joking. He had gotten quite scared. Then she introduces herself, saying her name was Shia Muram, and asks if he was free this Saturday. She wanted to set up a date with a big guy, and asked if he wanted to watch a movie together. It was a great opportunity to investigate her, so he ended up saying he was free. Thus they end up agreeing on a place to meet. They also choose a very romantic movie for the two to watch together. Finally the day arrived. Of course he didn't have any other intentions. All this was to investigate the girl, but he was afraid of her. He ends up taking his phone, since he had received a message from Erika who was worried. Soon after, he gets tense, because he didn't know if he should talk to her or just watch the movie. A guy passing by bumps into his soda, making it spill on him. Our macho protagonist goes to protect the girl, cursing the guy. Soon after, he asks if Shia was okay. She said yes, but her legs were wet. So she quickly grabbed a tissue to dry herself. With an embarrassed laugh, he told her to let him know if she needed anything. Minutes later, the movie finally starts. He was thinking about what kind of questions to ask the girl, to try to learn more about her. But since it was a date, he needed to be a bit more confident. When he got tense, he put his hand on the girl's shoulder. A guy passed by bumping into them. He had failed again, so he ended up deciding to simply watch the movie. The movie was suspenseful, and at that moment, he got mad, because our protagonist was very scared. He kept screaming that he was afraid. As the scenes passed, he got even more tense. In the middle of one scene, he ended up screaming, He hugged Shia, saying he was scared. Even the people in the front row started complaining, saying he was making too much noise. In the scene, there was a killer holding a knife. He started screaming that he was very scared and wanted to leave. Shia simply went there and covered his mouth, telling him to be quiet. The horror scene continued, making him jump, spilling popcorn everywhere. And they didn't even want to go home yet, because he didn't want to watch the movie anymore. This protagonist was very scared. There he was, all terrified outside. Shia pinned him to the wall. He didn't understand anything, asking what the hell that was. She was using a form of seduction, and asks if he would like to know something about her. He blushes, and at the same time freezes, unable to say anything. She keeps approaching, making him even more embarrassed. Soon after, she starts smelling him, saying she even senses a demonic presence that is much weaker. She explains she was smelling a demonic scent, like a strong smell of sweat. And the guy asks if that was him, by any chance. She doesn't say if it was him or not, and just says she didn't like that smell. But he shouldn't worry. If he was hiding something important, he would be punished. That makes the guy terrified, but he swears he isn't hiding anything. At that moment, an ice cream falls on the boy's head. Turning angry, asking who did that. He notices it was a little girl. The child laughs, saying he looks like a unicorn. And Fred complains to the girl, saying she should take care of her daughter. Meanwhile, the girl laughs, saying he really looked like a unicorn. Even Fred gets mad, asking if she was laughing at him. But the girl hides it, making a serious face. Soon after, she calls him to hurry, because they were wasting time. She was talking strangely, so Fred asks what happened. I don't know about you, but she really is acting strange. She said they should take a walk to get some fresh air. Someone was crumpling a soda cup in the back. And we see that it was that spoiled rich kid who was trying to date her. They went to a park to walk. Stopped on top of a bridge, breathing fresh air. She was looking at a pocket watch, and our protagonist comes running, saying he almost lost her sight. Seeing her holding that watch, he asks why she still uses that kind of old equipment. She said it was nothing special, and that she was hiding that watch so he wouldn't see it, because he might find it strange. Changing the subject, he wanted to know why she hates so many demons. Even though she had never seen Erica before, she hated her friend. In response, the girl said demons weren't good. They were treacherous, but the girl was also a demon, so it didn't make sense for her to feel that kind of feeling. She agrees, saying yes, she is a demon. That caught his attention, so he told her not to say things like that. The girl responds that he doesn't know anything. At that moment, a car arrives, and throwing itself onto them, they almost get run over. And it was that shameless, spoiled rich kid who wanted to take revenge in the accident. At the last moment, he ends up throwing himself on Shia to save her. The car barely grazes them, as they get stuck on the fence. The car drives away, however they end up losing their balance. The impact was strong, so he wasn't going to be able to hold her for long. Since he didn't know anything, he immediately started talking to the girl, trying to calm her down. She said everything was fine. Because of that he totally lost his balance. For the second time, they fall together into the water. Meanwhile, Erica was looking for them, remembering she couldn't be too far from Fred. He had taken advantage of her sleeping to slip away quietly. That mark started turning red again, showing that her energy was running out. When she felt he was too far away, that mark began to burn, and she woke up startled. Because of that, she was angry, asking how he could use and forget the pact. She even kicked a can, completely furious. The can hit a poor cat. The cat got mad at her. The beast and the girl ran away scared. Meanwhile, our protagonist, along with Shia, was lying in the river. To their relief, the river wasn't that deep. She started calling for Fred. He was lying very close to her. When standing up, he said thank God they hadn't died. Soon after, he turns asking if the girl was okay. She said yes, but now her clothes were all wet, leaving some marks. The guy was so shameless, he even had a runny nose. She asks if he was okay, because she understood that the shameless one there was looking at her. At that moment she started shouting that she lost his watch, until the girl tries to look for it. Fred doesn't ask many questions, but he understood that watch was important to her. So he decides he'll help her. It was already getting dark, and they still hadn't found it. They spent about 5 hours searching that river. The girl was losing hope, saying she wouldn't be able to find it. She even tells him to go away, because she would come back tomorrow to search a bit more. because the water was very cold at night, and it wouldn't help them to stay there, since it was getting dark. However, Fred said it was very important to her, so he wasn't going to give up. He didn't know how important it was to her, but since it was important, he would do his best to find it. At that moment, he steps on a creature. She tells him to go rest while she would keep looking. Those creatures take revenge, pinching his leg. That makes him jump in shock. Because of that, he falls to the ground, and the girl tries to hold him. However, water splashes everywhere. Those rivers weren't that deep, so it didn't make sense for him to start sinking at such a deep level. It seemed like he was falling into a sea, and little by little, he feels he is sinking. At that moment, he has a flashback, seeing the exact moment the watch fell. When they were run over, the watch ended up falling very close to the guide. This memories came to his mind at the very moment he's drowning. It was as if he was releasing a hidden power, and even had an energy sphere around him. He tried to touch that energy, which emanated a very warm light. At that moment, he returns to reality, hearing Erica calling his name. Then he wakes up in the girl's arms. She asks if he was okay, and the guy, all embarrassed, keeps apologizing. However, he knew very well where her watch was. He goes there and finds it where he saw in his vision. She asks how he found it, and the guy stays there without saying anything. It would be complicated to explain now, and he said he would explain in more detail next time. She accepts that answer and sits down to rest. She even asks if he wasn't curious to know the importance of that watch to her. However, he could guess what that meant. It was probably from someone important to her. That's why she kept it so carefully. And we see exactly that. There was a photo of her parents. At the same time, Erica was being attacked by a cat. She could feel Fred's distance, so she started walking toward him. When she arrived, she saw he was sitting on the grass. Finally, she had found that shameless guy, so she walked up to him very angry. When she got there, she noticed the big guy was on a date precisely with that other demon. That made her heart beat faster. She even took the kitty off his head and threw the poor animal away. She had suffered all day because of that impact. And our hero was there enjoying the day with that other demon. Meanwhile, Shia had already figured everything out. She discovered the boy had a pact with the Queen of Demons, and didn't know if that could be called luck or bad luck. And that was exactly why he was living with her. Fred thought that might be a bit of bad luck, since the Queen of Demons was influenced by bad company. And Lilith ended up sneezing, since he was referring to her. While they were walking, Shia felt Erica's presence. The girl was in front of the two. The atmosphere was very tense, and Erica asked if they had had enough fun. To protect our protagonist, the girl stepped in front, saying she wouldn't let Erica take him, and also said all demons are evil. The atmosphere was tense, and Fred needed to convince both to make peace. With a lot of confidence, he kept telling them not to fight. However, it was useless, and he knew that if he lived again, that final fight would start. However, he ends up asking them to wait. But it was no use. They started fighting using all their demon powers. Shia ends up stomping hard on the ground, and Erica stands in front of her. Pointing a finger at the girl, Erica said her presence was very strange, and discovered it was because she was half human and half demon. Laughing, Shia mentions that it took her a long time to find that out. Then she admits that her mother was human and her father was demon. They fell in love and gave birth to her. However, this was considered nothing by the orthodox demons, and because of that, the king ended up killing her parents. Upon hearing this, the girl was scared, because the king back then was her father. Very angry, Shia punches the ground, making her arm become energized. She had seen that scene with her own eyes about 10 years ago. She was just a little girl when she saw the demon king finishing off both her father and mother. That was traumatic, and Erica knew this could be true, but kept saying her father would never do something like that. Thinking about the idea of her father doing that atrocity, she starts releasing evil power. Our hero knows this could be very dangerous, even more so because they were connected by a pact. She ends up releasing all her energy and falls unconscious, and Fred keeps asking what happened to her. She explains that she simply exhausted her energy, and this could be dangerous. However, it wasn't fatal, and that was good news. Shia smiles and says she will go back home, saying goodbye to our protagonist. However, he calls her back, and says the first time he heard about the girl's parents, he felt very sorry that it happened. But she should believe Erica because the girl was not a bad person. Even though she was a demon, she didn't have a bad heart. On the contrary, she was kind. Besides, Shia's parents wouldn't want her to be blinded by revenge, because that would only bring destruction to her. The girl heard that and knew Fred was a good person, someone she could trust. However, he was there helping and holding in his arms her enemy. Later, Erica wakes up. She only managed to recover her energy because our protagonist gave her some of the red liquid. The girl sees his hands with those bandages and gets worried. Returning to the subject, she said it was probably her father who did that, because he wasn't a good person. Our protagonist says he knows Erica and knows she is a kind person. Besides, the Demon King had disappeared about 10 years ago, exactly when Chia's parents died. He asks if Erica didn't trust her father. Besides, she herself knew her father, unlike others who only judged by appearance. Lilith might also know some extra information, so he planned to ask her when they met. She sneezes upon hearing her name mentioned, even saying she feels like someone has been talking a lot about her lately. After that, she closes the book saying she finally found a way to break the pact. The scene changes to Chia's house. She was taking a shower and remembered the conversation she had with our protagonist. When he had just found her watch, she saw this guy was very kind and always willing to help people, and even wondered why she was thinking so much about him. Soon after, she turns off the shower and notices her phone was ringing. She had received a new message, and it was from that bully who was spying on her and even took a picture of her. She gets scared seeing that, and even wonders if he had discovered her powers. The scene changes to the next day, with our protagonist brushing his teeth. He had received a message on his phone, and it was from Chia telling everything that had happened. He didn't give it much importance because he didn't see the photo. Soon after, she said that rich kid from school was spying on them. The guy gets really scared and asks if by chance he discovered she was a demon. She didn't know how to answer that, but sent the photo. Upon receiving the image, he was already scared, realizing that guy was very dangerous, even more than he expected. The message said he was spying on Shia, implying he had discovered some secret about her. The scene changes to that bridge, where he was guarding the girl to negotiate with her. Very confident, he asks if she really had the courage to come. She gets very angry, asking what he knows about her. The guy said he twisted some facts and hired some trolls on the internet to spread fake news about the girl. If she didn't accept to live with him, he would spread all the information on the internet. She gets relieved, realizing he hadn't discovered she was a demon, and hands the phone back to him, saying she wouldn't go out with him and didn't care if he spread those news. The guy thinks she was bluffing because he wouldn't believe she was capable of such a thing. So he had a plan B, saying he knew she wouldn't accept. Because of that, he arranged for his henchman to find Fred. He imagined Fred was her boyfriend, and that if by chance the girl didn't break up with him and dated the bully, they would beat the guy up. He even hired a fighter for that. Upon hearing these words, she gets angry and ends up hitting him with magic, throwing the guy far away. He gets scared, asking why she was so powerful. She even went there and broke the crazy guy's phone. Releasing sword magic, she said she didn't care if he threatened her, but he wasn't to threaten Fred. She realized she was dealing with a monster, and repeats, saying that guy shouldn't involve her friend, since he was very precious to her. And so we reach the end of the first part of this work. Guys, it's very good. I'm sure that if you got this far, it's because you liked it. So leave a like and a comment so I know you're a respectable subscriber. That's it for today. See you later, guys.